human brain is a marvel of creation, intricately designed to seek meaning and connection. During Ramadan, this quest for spiritual fulfillment is heightened. Fasting activates areas of the brain that are associated with empathy, self control, and reflection. Join us this Thursday at 6:15 p.m. for an enlightening lecture by Dr. Daniel Abdulrahman McBride on the fascinating connection between the brain, religion, and Ramadan. Ina alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulallah. I'd like to welcome everybody to our series with Dr. Daniel Abdulrahman McBride on the human brain. And I really hope that you guys will share this live stream to all your social platforms, because inshallah, this Saturday, this weekend, inshallah, we will begin Ramadan, the sacred month of Ramadan. And remember, guys, the good thing about Ramadan is a lot of good things about it. But Ramadan, I've always told you guys, there's no such thing as a new year in Islam. You know, the calendar was the hijra is not nothing to worship. It has nothing to do with the religion. It's something that Umar radiallahu anha decided to do to be different from the non-believers in beginning the year. But we don't celebrate. But if there would have been a time of the year to mark the new year, it would have been the month of Ramadan. Because as our prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Ramadan is the month of change. Ramadan is the month of new beginnings. Ramadan, this is the month in which Allah shares knowledge of what's going to happen for the upcoming year with the angels. So we should all be preparing ourselves spiritually and mentally for the month of Ramadan. And how better to do that than with the brain, because our brain is connected to the heart. And we have the left side of the brain, which is whispered to by our personal jinn. And we have the right side of the brain, which the angel of the heart tries to inspire. So I want everyone to take notes, everyone to put us on a big screen TV, everyone to share this live stream to everyone on your social media platform, all Muslims, so we can learn how fasting, how month of Ramadan impacts the human brain, and how we can take advantage of fasting and this sacred month by making the most, getting the most potential from our brain. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Daniel Abdulrahman McBride.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Yes, Ramadan, inshallah, tomorrow night, starting this weekend. I'm really excited. And it really, like I said, this is one of my key reinforcers in terms of when we talk about right brain and left brain, and right brain is long-term, monthly, yearly goal steps achieving to achieve that big goal. And Ramadan is such a huge month to literally train in both sides of the brain. We've got short-term goal setting in terms of what I'm going to do tomorrow to get it right, or what I'm going to do later today to get it right. We also have what I would actually consider short-term. We have the whole planning of the month. I'm going to go for 29 or 30 days. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And it's really cool if you remember, as I talked about 2 weeks ago, I believe, about the hypothalamus and controlling darn near everything inside. I mean, this is the key word with the hypothalamus. It's really easy to remember, is homeostasis, maintaining balanced function, whether it's appetite and eating, whether it's thirst and drinking, whether it's your circadian rhythms and sleeping and waking. It's really, and it's also hugely important for emotional control. That's why fasting, along with piety, is discipline and control. And piety, absolutely, if you can be a pious person, there's such a broad, that's such a broad term for getting it right, controlling your tongue, controlling yourself. So Ramadan is a really, I'm excited, alhamdulillah. I am very excited about the fact that now we've got 29 or 30 days to really practice and train both sides of our brain. And it's really cool in terms of the Arabic language and going to prayer every night. The Arabic language, you can stimulate both sides of the brain with the Arabic language. It's a very descriptive language. The brothers and sisters, especially, that you absolutely have, you know what you're reading, you know what you're hearing. It's just number one to listen to. It's a beautiful language, so that's going to stimulate both sides. It's very verbal. It'll stimulate you trying to pick up words. That's a left brain thing. Then the rhythm and the pace of it, the tones, is a very right brain stimulation. So even if you don't know it, Allah gave us a language that stimulates the whole brain, even when you don't know Arabic. And that's hugely important, going to Taraweeh every night. Now, let's talk about, if we can, I'd like to jump back and forth between the right and the left brain. I'd like to talk for about 30 minutes tonight. And then what we can do is do questions and answers. I think it's very important now that we've had lots of talks about brain function. So let's customize it down to each one of us. And it's really cool. Some of the questions one person may have, and it's all about, oh, I don't want to be selfish. It's all about me. But there's so much overlap with other people. And then it also gives me a chance to further explain something that I didn't already answer. So please, if you have questions, write them down and ask me, and I'm going to target down very cleanly in this first 30 minutes or so, probably not more than 35, that I want to explain some stuff, lay a foundation, and then we'll open it up to questions. And please include straight, your just right and left, your hemisphericity stuff. Well, we haven't gone over Brodmann areas, but what area of the brain is involved, how to stimulate it, how to improve things, how to ramp things down, right and left. I also want you to talk and it can be both from a religious point of view, and for me, everything's based on religion, so it's always religion, but also very, like from a science point of view, or a more secular point of view, because like I said, everything for a Muslim is religious. There's this whole secular division thing doesn't make sense to me. It's all religion, our whole life. It's a lifestyle. It's not just in the house, and it's not just at the masjid. It's not just amongst Muslims. We clearly demonstrate our character, hopefully, in a good way that sets us apart and lets everyone know who we are. And that's huge. And again, that's a right-left integration and a balance. So what we'll do is I like to start on the right side. I tend to lean right anyway. The idea is, think about one of the big things about the right brain is its desire and the skill sets for socialization. And when I use the word fitting in, I don't mean being a total conformist. Okay. It's, for example, none of my brothers, there's 3 other McBride boys, none of my brothers have accepted Islam, inshallah. My mother hasn't yet, inshallah. And so it's not about just being socialized and fitting in our community. It's literally socialization. And not that I think we evolved from animals, but if you look at animals, there's a socialization for human beings, a pack mentality for animals, right? And most animals like being part of the pack. Some of them don't, obviously. I understand that. But generally speaking, especially for human beings, we are not the biggest, the strongest, the longest claws, the biggest teeth, the most aggressive. Sometimes we are, probably, but we, if we are left alone, for the most part, we won't survive. And yes, you've got these hermits and these people that live out wherever. But understand now, human beings kind of run everything, along with running most of the earth into the ground. And as the angels asked Allah, why would you, and I'm paraphrasing, why would you create something that can destroy everything else? And Allah said, you don't know what I know. It's the idea that some people, yes, they like to be out in the woods. They like to live by themselves. We hear all these stories about people surviving and all this survivalist mentality. But generally speaking, the majority of us, and research supports, we want to be part of a group. If I can take it back several hundred years or even today, look at the people blindly following the folks in charge here in the US right now. A lot of them do it because they want to fit in with what's around them. They were raised with certain biases, very little big picture that can be trained in. Literally, people just don't see the big picture. Again, the funny example was this Doge stuff, and think about how left brain that must be now. There's no socialization, there's no big picture. When you fire the entire nuclear monitoring staff because they don't appear to be doing anything, and definitely left brain, there's no big picture there. Their job is to monitor stuff and make sure there's no nuclear activity. That's their job. So if nothing's happening, it's really important, isn't it? So how do you fire all these cats because nothing's ever happened? Because they're good at their jobs, and that's why nothing happened. So you don't fire these people, right? But think about, he said, oh, well, we don't need them. Cut them loose. Well, no, we definitely need them. An even sillier example is that stuff out in Yellowstone with the national parks. They fired a guy. His main job was to handle emergencies, and he had all the keys to all the buildings. He knew it. He had it. They had it all localized into this one guy, this one person, and they fired him. And they didn't consider his job important because he's the in case of emergency stuff. So what do you do there? You don't fire the in case of emergency stuff. But if you look at it from a left brain perspective, well, he doesn't do much. Well, that's great because we want to keep our emergencies to a minimum. But I got to tell you, I want the guy guy and girl, the person who's prepared to handle the emergencies just in case. Because if they're not there, right? That's why we have firefighters. That's why we have police officers. That's why we have military. It might be a big paycheck, but it's a just in case. So we don't have fires every day. You don't cut their paychecks, right? We don't keep a fire station at half staff because they don't do a lot. Because when it comes time, I want the whole staff available at the top of their game, and I want them to be reimbursed, don't I? This attack on teaching and schools. There's no phys ed. Well, who needs to be physical? Well, obviously, the reelected white guy doesn't enjoy being physical except playing golf. And his close friend, the South African, I mean, you can see there's no right brain, large muscle skills, right? We talked about that. No right brain, large muscle skill control. It's all fine detail stuff, fingers and this and that, and small-minded, very linear, no big picture scheme at all. Very focused on something very small, and it's in a good way. You want people that pay attention to details, but a lot of times the details, the micromanager, you don't want them in charge of achieving and establishing what the big picture should be, because that left brain, when it's that far out, like the reelected white guy and his South African friend, those guys are way out there. They don't get the big picture. The only thing they focus on is, and again, a left brain is about accumulation when you get way out there, and a right brain is about socialization. So this is hugely important. They work when it's balanced, and that's really important. When you're balanced or real close one way or the other, like one of my daughters is leans more left than I do. So literally, when I need stuff done and I need it done now, I literally turn things over to her. when I want, and analytical when I want, but she gets very emotional too. It's really pretty cool. The idea is though, she can get something done. I mean, I'm not lying. When my girl is I've got two daughters. This one is really, really left brained. She's the one that as an athlete, she paid attention to the details. She if she knew her teammates weren't running hard enough, she was the coach always had her. She was captain her junior, senior year, I think it was in high school. And she was always the one that had to shoot the foul shot at the end of practice to determine whether they were done running or not. And if it was a great practice, she'd make the shot. If it was a bad practice, she'd brick it. Her teammates hated it because you couldn't tell her anything. That's that left brain thing. Her ideas are right. And if they had a terrible practice and didn't work hard enough, she would literally just throw the ball, hit the backboard, and walk right to the line. And everybody knew when they saw her step up what was going to happen. But again, she was close enough that she had a big picture thing. She knew her teammates needed to learn how to work hard. They needed to be in shape. If they didn't work hard in practice, they ran hard after practice. So she literally trained it into them. Again, she leaned left. So she didn't, again, remember, right? Socialization. On the left, it's that short-term goal achievement. She wanted to have a good season. That's a short-term goal. And she wanted to have a good practice, very short-term goal, right? So when they work well together, her team did well. I got to tell you, when her team clowned around too much, boom, she was out there. You can see an athlete like Kobe Bryant. This guy had to be darn near dead center. You've got a 6'5" basketball player right out of high school, played got into the NBA, right? And again, though, his detail, his attention to detail of figuring out where his strengths were, where his weaknesses were, working on it, building up endurance, improving his shot, going to training, millions of shots on one spot, millions of shots on another. This cat had, I mean, if he wasn't dead center, I even think he might have leaned left a little bit, but he was big enough and athletic enough. He had the genetics to that the left brain, his left brain strength trained in these exceptional skill sets because he practiced them and the detail of it all, right? Another hugely important thing, like I said, is the big picture idea. And that's really important for Ramadan. Again, like I said, one of my key points and motivations to do well during Ramadan is planning. I tend to lean right. And some of you also, I would recommend planning the next day in detail. And if you can, what's really cool is if you want to start writing things down, even if you know what time you are getting up, that writing reinforces the process in your brain, because not only is it a thought, but it's also an action. You've already taken an action. That's why I don't journal, but I do write down plans. I write down times. I write down days, money. I might write down exactly what I'm willing to spend on something. And if something comes on sale for the office or for my equipment or something, I literally plan stuff out. Or I have to save up this much for the seminar. I have to have this much set aside. I plan that. Even if I know it's an achievable goal, I write it I'll write stuff down. And the more I learned about the brain, the more I started writing down stuff that I knew I wouldn't forget. I knew exactly how it was going to happen, but writing it down kind of ensures training it ensures training in that process. Not kind of. It ensures training in that process. And since I lean right, I don't want that to overtake things and I start taking things for granted again, like I did when I was younger. I didn't start planning things until all this brain stuff, and I learned how important it was to stimulate my right side and the empathy part of it. That's why I'm into healthcare. And then the left brain, I have to plan things. I have to make sure things fit. The knowledge, I have to plan my study time. I have to plan my review time. I'm not into a new course right now, but I review all my old stuff, because the more you look at it, the more you write it down, the more important it is to the left brain. And that's the detail stuff. Then tomorrow, I'm looking for excuses to do this, right? I'm looking for ways to achieve it, actually. And the more you write things down and the more you plan. And that's why I'm saying Ramadan is a really good opportunity. Whoever does the grocery shopping in your home, whoever does the cooking, they tend to plan ahead. And that's a really cool skill set. My family will tell you I'm a horrible cook. I don't plan meals. If it was up to me, it would always be toasted peanut butter and jelly. And so my standard process powder to make sure I got all my nutrients and stuff and all the supplements I take. But my kids, oh my gosh, 3 of the 4 all cook. So they literally, you can see they plan a little bit better than their dad did at their age. And like I said, my one daughter plans a lot better than I did when I was 20. How old is Khadijah? She's 26. She'll be 27 this year. She plans a whole lot better than I do. She, like I said, I can't tell you how much she can get things done. Both my girls have developed that skill set, and they feed into each other, which is really cool. And my boys are getting better at it. If you remember correctly, as I mentioned before, not so much right or left, but that prefrontal cortex, that final thing that really, really science says sets human beings apart, that development finishes sometime around the age of the early to mid 20s with girls, with females, and mid to late 20s in boys, males. And that's, so you can see it. And my boys are starting to come into their own, and my girls came into their own a little bit sooner. It's really pretty cool that has happened. And again, remember, if we can, jumping back to right and left, think about what happens if you tend to be left brain now. A strength is very linear, very pattern oriented, very short-term goal achieving. Well, left brain people tend to be more accumulators. They tend to accumulate stuff. Right brain people, hopefully in a good way, accumulate stuff. And hopefully for the right brain, they tend to accumulate relationships. This is the EQ side, and this is the IQ side. That's why a lot of people, it's really interesting. And you can see it in kids. And you can look at your children or grandchildren or neighbors' children, whatever you'd like to do. If you see them over a course of a few years, strong left brain kids, they might read earlier, they might speak earlier, they will be very literal in their, well, all little kids are usually very literal. Right brain kids also seem to be very intelligent, very coordinated, very athletic, where left brain kids aren't so much athletic, but they are very verbal. They come off as very intelligent. Oh, my child read at 2 years old, but they didn't start walking until after, say, 12 months plus, like say 12 months, 14 months. That's that you start looking at 14 months as kind of a delay. It used to be 14 months was considered a big delay. Now, like I said, the CDC, I think it is, they changed all the parameters because so many kids are starting to be delayed on a lot of things. They're saying milestones aren't important, when milestones are your first indicator that something might be wrong. And then if there's an imbalance, understand these milestones are important, and they're pointing towards problems later on in life. Okay? So it's hugely important, as I sidetrack, it's hugely important that milestones get paid attention to. So now you've got a right brain person, right brain child, and it's evident they tend to be more coordinated, more, a right brain child will crawl better. The right brain child will get up and walk better. The right brain child will have, believe it or not, a right brain child will have more muscle tone. A left brain child may read early, they'll sound really intelligent, and it's a great thing. But what'll happen is As they stay more on the left side and less right brain development, if left brain kicks in too early, they may not be good crawlers. They may shimmy or they may scoot on their behinds. Those are terrible things. If they scoot on their behind, then they move up to walking, they miss crawling. Huge, huge issue. You better understand with your kids, and if they didn't do it, it's not too late. If you didn't do it, it's not too late. What you do is you literally get back to crawling. And there's real cool research that shows crawling actually improves math scores, even in adults. But crawling integrates both sides of the brain together. First, you're scooting, commando crawling, normal. Then you tie in almost like a lizard where the same side is moving all the time. Then you get to cross crawling, where it's left hand, right leg, right hand, left leg. And those are huge steps to take. And now they're up. They've already trained in the opposite body movements, right? Hugely important also to your balance centers and your vestibular system with this opposites and this control. So now the right brain kids are a little more coordinated. The left brain weaknesses, the left brain lack of muscle tone, the left brain coordination. You can see it, like I said, in our reelected white guy and his friend. When you saw them dancing next to each other at that dinner to the music, it wasn't the beat that was off. It was their muscular control. If you see those memes or search that stuff up, you can see how awkward they look. I mean, if we can say races, they embarrassed the whole race by their lack of coordinated movement, didn't they? But again, that's a left brain thing. And they clearly demonstrate these excessive, I'm not criticizing left brain because left brain it's important. But when you get way out here on the excess and every thought you think, then you think that's the best thought ever and you're never wrong. You run down that light, that lane until the very end, and you try to get through farther because you think it's right, even when you miss the big picture. Okay. Huge problem for those two. And so a lot of the people around it. And back to the right brain, now you got big muscle control, you got coordination, you got empathy, you got socialization, you're accumulating good relationships, hopefully, as compared to the excessive left brain, they're accumulating stuff. And you can see how that's a huge problem. Now, picture bringing that together in Ramadan. Allah has blessed us with 29 or 30 days of literally trying to integrate both. I'm already thinking about what time I'm going to get up on Saturday morning. I'm planning on what we're going to eat. And it's a huge point. Try not to overeat at breakfast. It's not the time to get excessive breakfast, excessive dinner. Okay. It's literally Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in so many different ways has told us it's the middle of the road, right? Remember, even during Ramadan, we've got 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, don't we? With your meals. It's get all of your fruits and vegetables, those are considered carbohydrates, right? The complex carbohydrates. Get all of your fruits and vegetables, get all of your proteins, and then if you need to, leave something for sweets at the masjid or the rice or the noodles, whatever the masjid you go to, the different cultures. It's really cool, especially down in South Florida. You have several large grouped communities, and going amongst the masajid was really a joy down there. But it's really important. I would recommend, and if you can, take this month. If you've always wanted to do something, it's not your primary goal, but Allah has given us an opportunity to really start gaining control. If you can, go after the fruits and vegetables first, or have your dessert as a fruit, right? But go after the veggies first on your plate. Get that salad, because most of the masajid have salad. Then they have the rice and the meat and maybe some macaroni and cheese or noodles of some kind, something in gravy, something in a sauce. But really load up on the salads and the protein and whatever vegetables you can get, and try to spend this month training it in. Allah has blessed you with this stuff, blessed us with this stuff. So now's a great time to train it in. And like I said, start tomorrow. Talk to your spouses and talk to the kids. Ask them to contribute ideas and write stuff down. I can't say that enough. Write stuff down that Saturday morning, this is what we're going to have for breakfast. Saturday evening, this is what we're going to break fast with. Saturday evening, this is the masajid. This is the masjid we're going to go to. Sunday, this is what we're going to do. Monday, this is what we're going to do. Like I said, people that usually prepare the meals in the house are really good at that because they'll start planning their shopping. They'll know boom, 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 boom. I still have to pick up the dates. I'm really upset with myself. I still have to pick up my dates. And now I'm focused on my dates, aren't I? But the idea is we have a whole month to plan out breakfast, to plan out what we're going to do during the day, to plan out reading the Quran. I'll start doing that during lunch more rather than just studying my brain stuff. I'll probably put the book that I'm working on and another project off to the side more and do more Quran. It's literally an important time to train. I can't say it enough, to train things in for all of us. We really, Allah has blessed us again, 29 to 30 days. And that's a perfect time. And how important is it? Because it really, especially now, it's most of us start realizing during Ramadan that we know Allah is watching us. For some reason during Ramadan, we tend to become hyper aware of it now, don't we? And again, like I said, that's part of our 5 pillars is fasting. And if you can't, Allah made allowances for that. If you've got something where you have to medicate every day, then again, you take care, or you have to keep food coming in. You take care of the rest of the community. How right-brained is that? And of course, the left brain, you've got to plan, pretend it's medications. You've got to plan your medications. You got to make sure the timing is right. I know a lot of people that have to maintain food intake and drink intake during this time. They actually plan it even tighter on what foods they're going to have. And that's their commitment, along with planning on how to feed others to make up for the fact that they can't fast. And of course, Allah has given us this gift. So if you can't fast, you can still right brain, left brain that thing. You're planning it out. You're making sure for yourself. You're making sure for your community. We have to pay our zakat before the end of the month. It's everything about this month sets us up for right brain, left brain integration. Because even if you're not that social and say you're way over here on the left brain, you totally get a big picture idea of Jannah. You think about Jahannam if you don't get it right. You literally you're almost forced as a left brain person to acknowledge that right brain and stimulate that right brain side, the big picture motivation, right? You have to get it right as a Muslim. And you understand that there's something out there other than your drive, don't you? And then for the right brain person, we have to plan. We can't shoot from the hip, so to speak, to get Ramadan right. We're getting over to the left side. Like I said, hyper aware of the time frame, hyper aware the day before of what time I have to go to bed, because I cannot miss, kind of thing. Everything is hyper awareness to the details now for a right brain person. I love this month from just the point of view of the benefits, both piety, right, and the training. It's religion and lifestyle for me. It really is, and it's really important for you guys. We get a lot more right brain questions than I do left brain questions. Left brain questions are fairly direct, and we talk about the psychopathies. We talk about the depression. We talk about narcissists. We talk about what else were some of the other terms? You got ADHD, you've got autism. They are predominantly hyper left, although there is a type that is hyper right. So you've got this stuff going on. So imagine this whole month, we get to literally train in both sides of our brain. And as a right brain person, now is the time, we've talked about it before, now is the time to really get linear about it. And I'm going to mention it again. Write everything down. Write that stuff. Write it down. Every day, plan out your day, just because. And it's a real good example. I got to tell you, you share this stuff with your kids. And I've noticed that I literally could bring in my children and they could probably prepare one of these lectures for you, because everything I share with you, everything I learn, they're the first to hear it, because the brain is the controlling organ. It was really nice that the Quran, and the sister mentioned how the heart is in a lot of control also. And they have actually found, I mentioned it before, cells that are actually similar to brain cells, and the heart can respond to things without it having to go up and back. And what it does is it responds, it reacts, the science words elude me right now, but the heart does things just like the gut does too. And the heart is mentioned so much in the Quran, and being a good Muslim, almost from an intellectual point of view, but mentioning the heart rather than the brain, if that makes sense. And a lot of you know what verses I'm talking about. So imagine now we are really focused on what I like in terms of stimulating both sides of the brain, and pretend you're at the masjid and we're interacting with people. Think about the disciplines so many of us learn during the month of Ramadan. So many of you talk about the whole rest of the year, people get hangry, right? Hunger angry. One of my coworkers does. And she'll even verbalize it. I'm getting hangry. I'm getting, oh, look at the way I'm behaving. I'm getting angry. You spend all day during Ramadan going hungry, right? And you may be hangry now. You go to the masjid to break fast. It's really cool that I get this. It's something I would notice, and I want you to notice it too. How polite and nice most people are now. You think these same people before Ramadan may have demonstrated a lack of discipline, a lack of control, a lack of manners. And in Ramadan, it's completely changed. It's that hyper awareness of good and evil. It's that hyper awareness that the shayateen are chained up, and Allah, it's you now. There's no excuses. Your good and your bad are solely on you, right? During Ramadan, it's all you. Allah has told us, He's warned us. How beautiful is that? Everything in the Quran, like I said, one of the things that really appealed to me is I like being warned ahead of time. And that's comforting to me, because now I know what to avoid. Like I mentioned, in speed traps, when I used to go to school in Virginia, and I'd be driving through a certain area in Pennsylvania, beautiful country, but there was a speed trap. And because I was familiar with the route, I knew right where it started. I got caught early on. After that, I learned my lesson. And as long as you know the rules, you can prepare for things and you can avoid things. And if you decide to speed through, it's your fault if you get caught. And now you're mad at yourself. Allah warned us about everything. And then things like Ramadan, He blesses us with these things so that we can actually earn extra hasana. And it trains us. Like I said, I talk to my patients all the time, and they know, I know, Dr. McBride, I know. You want me to train it in. It's true, because like I said, with this stuff, even with my lectures, if I'm boring, if I'm exciting, if I'm interesting, you still learn something. And as adults, we we have to remember that we are always learning. And that's, I got to tell you, being the right brain I've trained in my left brain, so I know it works. If you're a left brain, realize that you're very linear. Realize that you're good at pattern seeking and finding and working it out. Realize you probably love video games, but be smart enough, literally, because you're left brain, usually the high IQ, high EQ. Be smart enough in a relationship, for example, be smart enough to pay attention to your spouse and go at it from a selfish point of view because you want them to be happy with you and make your life easier. It's in the non-Muslim side of things, I always talk about happy wife, happy life. It's also a happy spouse, happy life, right? You've got a cranky husband. I mean, life isn't happy. They tend to be louder than you, so you're going to shake up the whole house, right? The idea is that, especially now, because you're hyper aware of all the good deeds you want to earn and blah, 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 blah. And people tend to really, honestly, at the masjid, I'll see it all the time. People tend to be nicer during this month. And that's something you can actually try to train in to make you a better Muslim within your community, within your household, for your family, at your job. And if you're a right brain person, understand we tend to procrastinate. We tend to put things off. We tend to be, you may be very emotional. You may be very fearful. Start writing things down, planning tomorrow today. Well, that's the title of the book I read. But planning tomorrow today will help train in that left side. Now's the time. Train it in to be more logical, to be less emotional. If you train it in now, oh my God, I'm worried about tomorrow. Oh, write it down. What am I going to do it when I get up? What time am I getting up? What am I eating? What am I preparing for my family? My son surprised me the other day on Monday. My younger son has come back up here and we got up to fast. I heard someone in the kitchen before I got out of bed. And I thought, wow, that's a shame. My mother didn't sleep well. And I knew what it sounded like. It was on the cutting board, cutting up something. And I figured fruit, making a fruit bowl. And I thought, wow, that's really nice. Mom couldn't sleep. So she knew my son's name, Abdurrahman, and she knew Abdurrahman and I were getting up to fast. So she's making us fruit bowls and stuff. I got out of bed and it was him. Abdurrahman was up cutting up bananas, cutting up strawberries. He poured blueberries in there. He cut up a pineapple. We had a fruit bowl. I'm kind of first thing in the morning. I boiled a couple of eggs the night before so that we'd have our protein. Then we had our standard process bar. We had our drinks. We had everything. But it was really cool that my son got up and started breakfast even before I did. That was really nice. And that's that planning tomorrow today. He went to bed early enough. He knew he was going to get up and fast with his father. And he got up before his father and started stuff. Me, I boiled the eggs and turned them off the night before. And then I got up at the time I need to get up to fast. We're going to do that for 29 or 30 days, along as best. And again, that's me planning that stuff, training it in to use my left brain more. And those of you who are left brain, train in being nicer. Think about the big picture. Start using this 30-day training. I consider 30 days a short-term goal. You may consider it a long-term goal. I'm fine with that. But start using your planning stuff in for other people idea. Literally plan this because you're already good at it. Left brain people are great at planning. Use that left brain skill set to plan in times when you're actually planning the time of the family, planning the time paying attention to the spouse, plan it in. Use your strengths. And this is a perfect month to do it because one, you're doing it to honor Allah and honor the order that He has given us. And number two, you're doing it in both cases to be nice and better. So there's the double reward, if not more times 700. That's what we're told, right? So that's why Ramadan is, for me, it's such a beautiful and perfect month that Allah has set aside for us. Another example of the perfection in terms of what Ramadan does for the brain, what Ramadan does for us as individuals spiritually in our hearts and our minds. That's why, and again, that training in, if you, as we've talked over the last several weeks, if you have figured out what kind of personality you are, start training in the skills for the other side. And I would also recommend, I wanted to throw these at you. If you haven't already written them down, right brain colors. You can also use these to stimulate the right brain for left brain people, to stimulate the right brain while you're trying to be nicer. The right brain is really sensitive or stimulated by blue, green, indigo. Those are some big colors for training in the right brain. So maybe you don't have to go to the extreme of spending $7 on Amazon to get blue tinted toy sunglasses, but you can. But think about that. And for all you us right brain people, to stimulate the left brain stimulation is going to be red, orange, and yellow. And one of the things you can use while you're cooking is turmeric, bright yellow, right? But red, orange, and yellow are great left brain stimulations. I would also like to remind you, if you're going to sniff things, remember, smell doesn't cross over. What you're going to do is right brain stimulation, right nostril, left brain stimulation, left nostril. And I also want to, and as couples, as family members, you can literally, if you're trying to stimulate more left-brained activity, husbands and wives, for example, you guys should have already talked to each other about this brain stuff. What you want to do then is, if you know your spouse is right brain strong, right hemisphericity, emotional, social, everything on the right side, sit on the right side. Because when you talk, the right ear, tends to fire across, and the left brain helps focus. It crosses through the right. There'll be a little right brain stimulation. And of course, that makes sense because that's going to figure out, the right brain is figuring out what it means from the left brain saying, these are the exact definitions and these are the exact words they use. The right brain is like, oh, what was the facial expression? What was the tone? What's the why behind this? Does that make sense? But you can sit on if you're stimulating if you want to stimulate the left brain of a right brain person, sit on this right side of your spouse, put your hand on their shoulder, rub the shoulder, rub the back. That'll all cross over and stimulate the left brain. Stimulate the right a little bit, but stimulate the left brain while the words follow suit also. And just the opposite. If the spouse is strong left brain, they're very linear, they're very literal. Engineers stereotypically are left brained. What you're going to do is sit on their left side, rub the left shoulder, rub the left neck, talk into the left ear for the same reason you're stimulating that side, the opposite side, that right side. Also, remember, vision crosses over a lot. Not totally, because both sides of the brain need to know what's out there. But vision also crosses over. So as the spouse looks over, it's going to be left corner of the eyes, medial and lateral, left corner of the eyes, stimulating the right brain. Now I want the right brain person to stimulate their left side. So you're sitting over here, and now the right corners of both visual fields are now crossing over. Does that make sense? And you can listen to this again if I went too fast. But those are all things along with writing it down. Left brain, write down some good things you're going to do. Right brain, write down planning the day. Does that make sense? Those are huge, huge pieces of advice. And I use them. And I push my kids to use them. I don't push my mother to do anything. So if you have any questions now, please feel free to ask.